Hi, I'm Akhilara.
And I'm Rohan Nahar.
Welcome to The Long Take. We've been off for a while, but we're back after a month of hiatus, and we're today discussing the Marvel movie Deadpool Wolverine, which is now on streaming or Disney Plus, wherever you have it. After its theatrical release, the only Marvel movie this year, actually, incidentally enough, after I don't know how many years of having three or four each year. And it's also integrating the Fox universe properly into the MCU sort of thing. Yeah, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, all of these movies are, I don't know, they're competently made. They can get very annoying. But then ultimately they're so unmemorable that you can't really have strong opinions about them, is what I feel.
Yeah, I think you got off on this was possibly the biggest point of the bad is that yeah, that's my issue with these movies, especially this one. I would say actually more than the last two, is that it's so relentlessly focused on what's happening to the MCU right now, that it sort of either forgets or doesn't actually care how this movie would work if I watch it in say 2030. It would not work at all, because the memory of what happened to the MCU post Endgame would be like a distant memory for most of us. Wouldn't people wouldn't really care. You're if you replay a movie, you want it to be fun and on its own, because the jokes are funny, on the base of the joke, and not the fact that what we are all going through in culturally of that era. So yeah, I think the movie is so focused on just what has been happening to the Marvel sort of world after the end game sort of and the whole Disney Plus sort of debacle, because they had to make too much content everywhere, is that it forgets that you have to be a good movie separate from all that.
Yeah, but then it also spends so much time looking back further, right? Like the early 2000s and stuff.
Yeah, because
Uh,
it's it knows that it's going to be the last movie that gets to do that, sort of pays a tribute to the Fox's X-Men universe. Is that I feel like Ryan Reynolds was no, I must use this movie to pay homage to everyone who did a great job. Which is why the movie, if you remember, the end credits is literally a series of compilations of
yeah, like it's like
behind
behind the
behind the
scenes.
scenes moments. Yeah, that was so sentimental. I was this is completely not in sync with what your movie has been. It's been poking fun at everyone, but right now you're but I was oh, that's where it's coming from. It's coming from a place of he's I want to ensure that these people who put in their whatever blood and sweat are remembered.
The problem with all three Deadpool movies, and this one more particularly, is that deep down there is a very nice sentimental idea behind it, right? But then it comes across as almost an afterthought, and the way that the movie is kind of designed, which is just relentless jokes, right, made by just
Yeah.
one person,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it kind of buries all the sentimentality, which I feel hurts the movie, because if you
Yeah.
think about it, the premise isn't too dissimilar to something that you might see in like a Pixar movie, right? There's
Mm.
this land where the forgotten kind of characters go,
Yeah.
but they all band together to be like, no, we might be forgotten, but we're kind of, we're important too. We deserve to have a voice, etc., etc.
Mm.
It's a very sentimental idea, and at one point, Deadpool was sort of a forgotten character. It just he willed it
Yeah.
into existence.
Mm.
Uh, but then this is hardly how they're selling the movie, right? This is hardly what the movie is actually about, because they
Yeah.
also have the time travel nonsense. They also have the multiverse craziness. They also have
Yeah.
Wolverine. But that is more important to the movie than the actual heart, right? Which is odd, because in any other film, they would focus on this over all the, razzmatazz.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, but those people are brought to almost give the movie an emotional foundation, right? They're yeah, yeah, we care for these characters, we haven't forgotten them, we want you to know. And they're introduced in the most South Indian fashion possible of
yeah, exactly.
people walking in an ultra slow mo, I'm भाई ये कोई ट्रेलर है कि ये मूवी का पार्ट है.
और सब एक कमरे में होता है. It's not like
Yeah.
integrated into the plot where like
No.
one person comes and then whatever. It's like
It's
we have
it's like
this
a
one.
fashion, like a ramp walk, like
Yeah, yeah,
everyone's
yeah.
coming in slow motion, like one person is throwing a card, one person got blades are coming, one person got something else coming. I'm like, bhai, oh, like, what is this? Like, I know it's like almost like the moments are built because they know in the audience people will be shouting at the screen. They're like, oh yeah, a blade aaya, oh
Yeah,
yeah, a
yeah,
bow aaya. Like that's what it is built to, like juice out every last like moment from those
yeah. Which
fan base.
is the odd, which is what I realized. I don't know which movie it was. I think Spider-Man or something, which I watched in like a semi-empty theater, and there were like
Hmm.
laugh pauses and stuff, which felt so awkward because there was nobody there to laugh.
Yeah.
Uh, it's like a
And it's
sitcom.
ultra weird with this one because it's like two different sort of fan bases, right? Like a lot of people who have seen the MCU, like maybe like they've
Hmm.
seen every entry. You ask them if they've seen like X-Men X2, X-Men United, and First Class, and they'll be like, I don't know what those movies are. Like that
Yeah, those
actually
are for older
that's a
people,
large part of
huh?
the fan base, right? And now you're bringing these two together and expecting that people have watched like X-Men Origins Wolverine. I haven't seen that.
No, but see, the thing is that it's almost slightly bold of them to kind of nudge us into having any sort of feeling for these characters, because
Yeah.
it's not like they're showing us like Jean Grey or Cyclops ka romance or something
Yeah.
like it. They're literally
Yeah.
one character who has never even been in a movie before. Channing
Yeah.
Tatum wala.
They're banking on the fact that people have followed the news cycle at some level.
Yeah, it's like you not only have you watched these movies, you have also followed like the production details of them.
Yeah, yeah, massive deep cuts, right? It's not like no one says Kevin Feige. Ryan Reynolds says Feige. He doesn't say Kevin, so you have to be really into this universe to like get all the movies jokes.
Which, in fairness, I'm guessing at this point, if you're watching Deadpool Wolverine, you sort of are, right? You at least you know who Feige
Hmm.
is. I mean, I'm guessing
Hmm.
most people would. I'm sure, like, किसी का parent
Hmm.
जाएगा, they'll be like, what does that mean? But then they will be lost, like Feige won't be the only thing that kind of alienates them.
Yeah.
Because it
Yeah.
is, after all, like the third movie in the Deadpool franchise, plus like the 25th or whatever in the MCU. So, like,
35th
oh
probably
my
at this
god.
point.
Uh, but yeah, the weird thing about it is it almost gets away with it also, right? Because like I have no feelings for Chris Evans ka Johnny Storm or whatever.
Yeah, I haven't even seen those movies. I've only seen like rushes, when they used to play on like TV channels here
On
and there.
TV, yeah,
That's how I know of those movies.
the Blade
I've
movies
never
though,
seen the Blade movies.
which
I had no idea there was a trilogy of those movies.
yeah,
I like came across that fact while I was writing the review for this movie. I was like, oh, there was like three of them. I
and
didn't.
one of them is directed by Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, that I think also I came across during the research, and then Electra I never bothered because like the Deadpool, not so Deadpool, sorry, what's the
Daredevil.
character? Daredevil. You see, this so sounding so similar. Um, that one never got like great reviews, so why would I watch like a spin-off of that movie? So like massive, like you're almost like digging like characters jabardasti from the bottom of like forgotten realm and being like, yeah, ye mahan log hai.
No, and there's an argument to be made that these characters sort of deserve to be forgotten, right? Because they're
Hmm.
like hardly like uh glory days, है ना?
Yeah.
Like this was these people are like those movies were terrible. Like Electra
Yeah.
is terrible. Like
Yeah, and you're
most of
putting these like characters from a different era of like almost like it has to be like millennial or like Gen X era because in the 2000s, and then I'm putting them next to like a character from like a one-off movie called Logan, and this teenager is roaming around, and I'm like, इसने क्या उखाड़ा है मतलब? Sure, she was in a great movie, but why is she suddenly here, right? And then they're like, no, it's not even the same one apparently. So when she's like, when she starts, at least she's the same one and Wolverine's the same one. So when they start talking to each other, when like, and then I'm like, but ये same character है ही नहीं. You are trying to invoke or you're trying to hit upon an emotional beat that the wonderful movie Logan established, and you're doing it with the characters who are not the same characters. Why would you think this would work for me?
yeah, they like kind of announce that in the first scene that ये दूसरा Logan है or something.
Yeah, and I'm like, why would you try to pull on that heartstring? It's not the same people.
I mean, so that stuff really doesn't bother me because if I'm not invested in the first place, and I don't really care
Yeah.
if you're trying to kind of pull at my heart, because I'm like I don't care. You just tell me a good story, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, this is also one of those movies where they want to come across as sort of rambunctious or
Hmm.
whatever, but then everything feels so tightly controlled. Like every joke that he makes, that they came up with like 15 versions and they tested
Yeah.
all 15 versions, and then somebody came in. I mean, this and Ant-Man 3, I feel, are the two biggest inspirations behind like the HBO show, which we spoke about last time also. Kaun sa tha?
The franchise. I don't think we
Yes,
spoke
the
about detail, but
franchise.
we probably referenced it. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The franchise. Because this
Yeah.
certainly feels like, you know, like Ryan Reynolds certainly fits the bill for at least one character on that show. Because I don't know, like this poor guy, right? Because he is so chained
Hmm.
to this character that, I mean, obviously we know that he's kind of changed his entire real life personality to kind of mirror
Hmm.
Deadpool.
And
But
and
then,
the fact that or even the other roles he gets at this point are basically like Deadpool without the copyrighted character.
yeah, which is the strange thing, right? And here also, it's the it's not like he's trying to evolve as a performer to
No.
forget, but even the character, right?
Yeah.
You watch the first Deadpool movie and you watch this one, and he's basically the same person. Um, there is no like 10 साल हो गए हैं, I'm 10 years older or whatever,
Hmm.
I'm not wiser, but at least I'm slightly more evolved. None of that is happening. There's none of the self-reflection or anything. As an actor, he might want to kind of be like, oh, let's change the character up a little bit, because then at least I'll have something new to do.
Yeah.
But then, because the character is so juvenile and because the character is so relentlessly kind of almost challenging you to kind of get annoyed at him.
Yeah, which is
And
why like I think his way to like push further at least in small amounts is to basically play variants of him, right? Like which is why he shows up as that long haired Deadpool. He's like, "Chalo, at least through this character I'll get to like play some other beat for like a few
yeah,
minutes."
no, but it hurts the movie, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, the emotional kind of sentimental stuff aside, if every scene in the movie is like of a similar tone,
Mm.
then it gets annoying or it gets old.
Yeah.
And you don't want to enter like the third act of your movie with, especially this one, because it's not like as small budget as at least the first one.
Mm.
This one, they're really like, this is like an MCU movie, right? Because it's A, ugly, and B, it's like हम special effects में करा देंगे कुछ ना कुछ,
Yeah.
whatever. Don't worry about it. Uh, so all of that is anyway going to be distracting from the story, right? Because you're looking at the screen and you're like, oh my god, like, are you really trying to, mimic Old Boy of all things
Mm.
here? But then you're doing it because, like, every character, every one of those 55 Deadpools is CGI. They look rubbery. Even
Yeah, yeah.
Wolverine is like
And you
rubber
don't even
in.
understand like why certain things worked in a different movie that you're trying to ape, right? Like it's not the free down even down to the framing of it or of like the
Hmm.
emotional sort of how you arrived at that moment, what you're doing around it, right? It's not like just like they're focusing on like, oh, this will like recreate it on some level, but then they'll add like other different things, right? Then the dog will show up like 4 times. That dog will like think dies or something if I remember. Then the other Deadpool dies in the middle. Then the other guy shows up. Who's that my guy? What do they call him? Like his best friend or whatever, who like in the human world. He shows up and everyone starts going gaga around him. He's like, oh yeah, you are the hero. You are the anchor being of this universe. वो टाइम पास हो रहा है. So like there's no thorough line कि ये करना है ना. There's like a
Hmm.
khichdi of ideas and they want to hit every beat in that finale.
Yeah. Plus, they want to do all that Loki stuff also, which I didn't watch that show. But I
Hmm.
was like, what is this? I remember watching like 1 or 2 episodes of it, so I know
Yeah.
what the.
Strangely enough, for a movie
Hmm.
like, normally like these movies that are like you have to watch the other movies to understand them, but like strangely, I felt Loki is actually the most crucial element to watch if you want to understand this show this movie fully.
Hmm. What did you think about the two villains?
I remember, oh yeah, two villains. Yeah, okay. There's that Succession guy. I completely forgot that he had a role to play. But yeah, the main villain is sort of is more at least goes to Emma Corrin, right? She's at least occupies the screen more. Yeah, I felt like she brought a different kind of energy at least. Like sure the CGI stuff was like very eerie and sort of like gives you like goosebumps or whatever. But at least like she was giving the movie something where like otherwise Hugh Jackman is stuck in this beat where he has to like respond always like sort of seriously, right? He's not allowed to like really be like talkative. So it's like it's either grunts or it's like one or two words or max like
Oh
one
yeah,
line.
that reminds me. He has that one scene, right, which is like his Oscar scene. The one where he makes fun of like Ryan Reynolds / Deadpool.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. Like I was like, "Ek second, did nobody tell you that you don't have to be this good in this movie? Like you are suddenly elevating the movie ka standard like considerably, and nothing is going to kind of even attempt to match what you're doing in this one scene. So I was like, just bring it down." Yes, suddenly asli ho gaya. Now suddenly we are like really doing acting now. So
yeah, I actually thought Corin was good as Cassandra. Didn't mind her at all. But like,
yeah, even I remember
but
her
I think the
being.
problem eventually is that she just gets lost in the mess because they they will pull the story in a different direction. Like as we discussed, they'll end up like in that one room / cave where then they'll introduce every hero slowly, and then that becomes the movie for half an hour. So completely loses like the villain isn't a driving force, right? It's not like she's still there in the back of your head. Ki, she's planned this and she'll show up any second. No, she's on pause now, and she'll only matter when they decide to go back to her compound. Like until then, she has like no purpose.
Shockingly, I discovered that I'm forgetting the name of that limbo land where they kind of end up.
I think the Void, if I'm not.
The Void, yes. Yeah. Shockingly, I discovered that.
Which is again like a Loki thing, right? If you should see the Loki, then that world again makes a lot more sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
like that purple
that
cloud thing that shows up twice, who tries to eat everyone up, is a reference to a purple cloud which shows up in Loki.
Oh my god. It reminds me of like Fantastic Beasts where like I remember there was some sort of like tent that would eat. Yeah, that thing is real. That's a real location. That desert thing. The most fake looking set of the entire
set,
movie.
Like, yeah.
Which, I mean, honestly, if you're going to create a fake New York, then you can create a fake desert also. Wouldn't that be cheaper? But they've, for some reason, thought of shooting in a real desert thing and creating a fake New York. So none of this makes sense. Especially, yeah, because we've discussed this before. And I think like this was like early pandemic. I don't know which movie it was, but I think probably those Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame, where they decided that we have too many secrets to keep and we cannot be seen outdoors.
Yeah.
So every movie started to be shot like andar kahin par. Yeah, and then it kind of broke the industry, right?
Yeah,
because then
I remember, I think the Thor Love and Thunder was the crowning moment, but like crowning moment, I'm saying ironically, like the opposite way, where I was just like, Taika Waititi like doesn't know how backgrounds work, right? I was like, you can't just put like blotches of blue and purple in the background and call it a day, bro. Like that's not how backgrounds work.
Yeah, so to me, this is just like a very, very expensive version of, something like that David Dhawan nonsense, because it barely resembles a movie. It's just a string of gags, stuff that you're supposed to point at and kind of clap at.
If anything, like Ryan Reynolds will be like, no, like I was intentionally doing that. That is the point. So your criticism is actually a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, but then he gets away with everything by saying, oh, ye to pata hai na mujhe.
Yeah.
Like, you can be sincere also and you can be tongue-in-cheek also and be like, of course, I'm winking at everything.
Except
and then
like the moment like you point out that, you don't actually care for any of your friends. Like if you look at it, he's trying to save the universe because he cares for these people, right? Which are shown at the beginning. His ex-fiance, the other people around him, I don't know any of their names because the movie doesn't care for them, so I cannot care for them. So they show up in the beginning, all that gang, and they show up in the end. And we are told that Deadpool cares for all those people, that's why he's doing it. And I'm like, if the movie's literally telling me they don't matter because they don't show up more than like 2 minutes, and I think 3 of the 10 get like a dialogue, then I don't buy your angle of the save my world. So then why are you like...
The wife doesn't even get a line, right?
Yeah. No, I think the ex-fiance gets a line. I think she probably gets more lines than anyone because she's also like, I think, 3rd or 4th on the bill call sheet. But like anyone else...
I remember that she was like super top billed.
Yeah.
But she had like...
Probably like max 3 lines. But there are actually people who are like only smiling. They're literally people who only smile because they're not given lines. Like that's their level of involvement. I'm like, iske liye tum dunya bacha rahe ho, kisko buddhu bana rahe ho?
I mean, yeah, so that's the problem with it's the problem with these movies.
Yeah,
right?
because the movies are like just like, as you said, they're like, series of gags, endless, like just like string them together, 50, 100 of them, 2 घंटे हो गए, सब घर जाओ.
I mean, there's probably a way to kind of do a better version of this, I'm sure. But they're kind of, it's like Ryan Reynolds, like he's chained to this character, and these movies are chained to this sort of format. They can't
Yeah.
really do anything else. If they do something else, then people will be like, excuse me, what? They happen to be like very popular and stuff. So
Yeah. Speaking of popular, this is like considered odd time, like which like we already mentioned for Marvel. But it's almost like it's funny, like like these are the movies like when they were acquiring Fox, they're almost like semi unrelevant, and they were like sliding away. Deadpool was like sort of working for it, but like everything else was like actual little garbage. Like the X-Men movies were going nowhere when they acquired them. And suddenly Marvel now finds it in a place where they actually needed this movie to work. Like they were like on a string of failures, earning I think less than what they were spending to make these movies. And now they find themselves in a year where they've cleared out the entire calendar, at least in movie sense, and just released this one. Like that, that's how much like Deadpool and Wolverine mean to them. Which is why when they make the joke, when he makes the random makes the joke, he's like, Hugh Jackman, you're gonna be doing this until you're dead. Like I feel like that's actually true. Like they're gonna keep bringing him back even in the next 2 Avengers movies. They're not letting him go.
which is like a depressing thought, right? Because
you cannot joke about it, which is what this movie does, and then still keep doing it, because then it defeats the purpose of like that joke. You are the joke then.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, they fail to recognize a good thing when they have it, right? Because enough criticism has been kind of lobbed at them about, there are no stakes in these movies. Which is why Infinity War, as well made as it was, it isn't a great movie because 5 seconds after the credits roll, you're like, oh, of course they'll be back. Which is a terrible position to be in, right? Because that's a grave kind of you dug for yourself, because you made a really good movie, but because like actual life and death mean so little to you, you've kind of erased the emotional kind of wallop of that movie, and which is what happens with this one as well, because तुम जितना भी बोलो कि ये same Logan नहीं है, but
that's what you're doing, right? Because no one really cares who is the same Logan. Like the point is that you have brought back Hugh Jackman. Like that's what you're cashing in on, is that people love him and people love him as Wolverine. They don't really care what version of Wolverine he's playing.
Yeah. So I mean, and the way that these things are going, like I have lost interest. I had lost interest, like I think a couple of years ago, with everybody else at the same time. We all collectively lost interest in these movies. I don't know if there's any way to kind of get back into this, unless you kind of make a standalone thing, which this most
Which is
certainly
what
isn't.
this is proving, right? Because like the last movie, I think was the Marvels, if I'm not wrong, last year, did not
Which I
work.
did
That's
not
the one I
watch.
was referencing, that that it made less money than its budget. But then this one actually did work. Like people did go out and see it, at least from the numbers at the box office.
Yeah, because people like these characters.
Exactly. So I think it's gonna be like up and down now. Like the Marvel's era of like that they can use the goodwill of one movie to make the next movie work, like which used to happen in the days like Ant-Man could make money, or some
Guardians.
Guardians would make money after they made like Avengers and stuff. Like those days I think are gone now. It's it literally depends on each movie has to like sell itself to the world, because they just made so much now. Like this TV shows, like I'm not even finishing the things I'm starting anymore. Yeah, so they've lost that like position that they had, which was a very coveted position where people were hungry to watch everything they were putting out.
And they were forgiving of mediocrity.
Yeah, so forgiving, right? Because the Thor movie was a garbage for a while, then they got good, and then they got bad again. So people watched them regardless.
They gave a pass to the second Taika movie also, which is shocking.
Yeah, Avengers first was good, but then the second Avengers was not bad, but then people was like, it's fine because there are more movies coming, and then Infinity War and Endgame sort of like were like the height again, so people are forgiving again. So like there was so much there in that Infinity whatever saga they call it, which is like downright mediocre, if not like actually bad or terrible. But it's you can pave it over because there's enough stuff around it to like hold the ship or whatever. But that's not the case anymore. People are like not forgiving anymore. They're like too much, like too bad, just to get out of my way. I will like tune in when I feel like, which is what the case is now. I think Guardians also like did well for them, the Guardians 3, and then things didn't do well in between, and then Deadpool did well, and there's no guarantee now. I think the next one is like some Captain America 4 or something, if I'm not wrong.
Which is still being shot, I read somewhere.
Oh wow, so good luck to that. But yeah, like it's now each movie will be like its own like test for them.
Yeah, and I'm not going to watch all of them. Like I used to watch all of them, but I'm not going to watch all of them
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
I'm just going to watch the ones that I want to watch.
Yeah.
You know, if, for instance, if Denzel is actually in Black Panther 3, then I'm going to watch that, even though I did not like Black
I
Panther
did
2.
not like Black Panther too. Yeah, I'm very like angry sometimes actually in these cases because I don't know, like actually, like I should be angry at like Marvel, right? And they're like, yeah, they're throwing money at Ryan Coogler, so he's like gotten him. But then I'm like, wait, now I'm partially angry at Ryan Coogler as well for like wasting his talent, like, and being in the Marvel universe for like what, half a decade now. Like, bro, go make something else.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's fine. Like you take that money and make that whatever. He's making some vampire
No,
movie.
no, हाँ, but I'm saying वो नहीं बना ना बीच में between Black Panther 1 and Black Panther 2 he did not make anything with that
Yeah.
money. So that's when it's annoying. I don't mind if you do one for you, one for me. Completely okay with that. But then do
No,
the one
honestly,
for
I don't
me.
begrudge him for doing Black Panther 2 because it's not like he was doing like a sequel to Ant-Man or something. You know, he was doing a sequel to like a
Yeah.
little Best Picture nominee.
But I'm saying if he goes directly
So
from Black Panther 2 to Black Panther 3, I will be disappointed.
then it's annoying, yeah. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. I mean, they have, for the longest time, they had like sort of a stronghold over the industry, right? Like everybody had to be a part and everybody was almost like a slave.
And I think in some ways that's still there, right? Because Downey Jr. went away, did stuff like Oppenheimer and a couple of other things, and it's now back. Which like that says a
for
lot,
the longest
right?
time. All of them, like I think Downey Jr. and Chris Evans were actually complaining about, you know, like we are stuck here. Please
Yeah.
help us escape.
And they got out, and like, but they're going back now. The Russos are going back because whatever they're doing elsewhere is not really working on the same level. So they feel like they've lost their quote unquote mojo, or like, you know, they want to like go back to that level where they were like ruling the box office in the world. So everyone's chasing that, and that's what they're chasing, and that's why they're going back to the universe. So in a way, like I feel like that still exists. Like Avengers, the next two ones, they're gonna sell on the fact of, you know, the characters, not the characters, the actors they recruit around.
Yeah,
Downey
plus
Jr.
they're going to do like Fantastic Four and
Yeah,
all
they
of
just,
those people.
which like, yeah, they already got like people, right? We love, right? Like Pedro Pascal's in it, Vanessa Kirby's in it. Like they have enough money to throw at these actors to get them on board, and they will do that for like Avengers, and they will find a way to like make those movies into 2 billion earners.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean,
But yeah, it's
it
not the
is-
same cultural cachet I feel like it used to be in the 2010s.
Yeah, because you lost the goodwill, right?
Yeah.
You had it for a while, and then you kind of squandered your position. You
Yeah.
kind of
You just like
became
dumped like
complacent.
15 things on people in 1 year, and people are like, I'm out.
No, but if all 15 of them were good, then people would still be in. It's a quality thing.
I feel like they go hand in hand, but yeah, you could be right.
But yeah, this is. I mean, maybe this kind of worked for them, but it doesn't really work as a
Yeah,
movie.
but it's a standalone thing, right? There's no back contribution from this. Like because of this, people are not gonna watch more Marvel movies. They'll maybe watch one more with Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. But because of that,
probably.
they might watch an Avengers because of it, because you'll just pile everyone into one movie. But this won't make people watch, like, say, Captain America 4 or whatever that coming down the line.
Yeah. It's almost to the point it's like unrelated.
Yeah, that transfer that used to happen transfer is gone for Marvel.
Yeah, which is a scary position to be in after making $1 billion or whatever dollars to still be not sure.
Yeah. Right, time to wrap it up.
Yep.
Okay then. That's all for this episode of The Long Take. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Threads at The Long Take Pod. You can write to us at thelongtakepod@gmail.com. Please leave us a rating and a review wherever you listen to the episode, and we will see you next week. Thanks for listening.